Some games are just time sinks. It's that simple. Look at them. They exist, and you just start thinking about them, and suddenly they're everything you need all day. They're few and far between, but they exist. Hi folks, it's Mac, and today on this video, 10 games that will keep you awake all night. Kicking off this list, we have to talk about Hollow Knight. I think Hollow Knight is a game that a lot of people wouldn't object to being classified as great. If any game hits all the right notes for a Metroidvania, it's gotta be Hollow Knight. It excels in all areas at once. It's extremely fun to actually play. It works out the exploration side of the Metroidvania genre, and then it wraps it up in this beautiful art style with pitch-perfect designs everywhere. The hand-drawn minor characters, animations, and enemy variety keep Hollow Knight feeling fresh the whole time you play it. It's meticulously crafted to draw players in with a gradual learning curve. It lacks tutorials and hand-holding, and it's all the better for it. Combat's impressive too, more like a rhythm game than anything else. Your dexterity matters more than your reflexes, and the strength of an enemy doesn't really mean much depending on the button inputs and how skilled you are. And that makes every fight, or a lot of them, feel unique and different. It's up to the player to apply the tools they got to win before they're overpowered, and it results in this amazing feeling of accomplishment. And the bosses all take a few tries, but the game is fair in a way where the player feels like they can learn their lessons from Hollow Knight, because it is just challenging, not frustrating, and it's just an amazingly beautiful, great game. Coming in next, we have Ori and the Blind Forest in 2015, all the way up to the sequel in 2020. Two critically acclaimed games that are some of the best examples of what video games can do. I don't know, they're just crafted experiences, top-notch Metroidvania exploration platformer experiences that draw from other games in the genre, but just have as much original stuff going for them. The art style, the music, the pacing of Ori, they're carefully designed elements that make the game memorable, an emotional experience without sacrificing a sense of fun. Yes, the game gets punishingly brutally difficult at times, but the meticulosity of design, the care that went into these games crafts an experience that never really feels unfair and understands that the only element of a game that truly makes it great is balance. When a game's mechanics work with its story, when an environment draws you in, when a game is fun and satisfying to play, you get an Ori game. Ultimately, the story comes out being more touching just because the game mechanics are so well designed. Everything is tight, everything is polished, and everything makes sense. And it creates an emotional attachment between the player and the character, you the player and your character, Ori, if that makes sense. It's just a game, like I've said with all of these games, that everybody should try. It's almost a can't-fail game. You're going to enjoy it. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Hades. It has a universality among hardcore fans and casual fans alike. It arguably introduced a lot of people to this roguelike genre. And while you could argue about how much appeal, the Greek mythology-based story has, it's the gameplay that matters in this one. And everyone agrees it's just pretty much perfect. Now, there's a long progression system to keep the gameplay loop interesting. There's plenty of content, to work through. There's innovative storytelling idea by sprinkling little pieces of stories in the hub world. And even though it all restart when Zagreus dies on a run, it makes every death in the core of the gameplay loop feel a part of the narrative. It feels rewarding even if you die and die over again. The combat is lightning quick in Hades and easy to pick up but difficult to master. Content is unlocked step by step to gradually allow the player to build skill before everything's thrown in. And even the opportunity to choose different weapons, power-ups, and enemies keeps the gameplay feeling different and unique, so you don't feel like you're in a grindy chore where you're playing essentially the same thing. It just really gets all of the elements that make a roguelike captivating and fun. And it perfectly delivers bite-sized runs. Well, you still have a bit of plot development or a piece of conversation with your father to remind you that you are in fact accomplishing something. Next up, we're going to talk about Little Nightmares 2. It feels like an odd entry into this list because it's basically just another one of those story-driven, film-like games that are more about the aesthetics than having amazing gameplay mechanics. But Little Nightmares 2 does something a lot of those games don't. It captures the imagination in such an unassuming way that it's able to tell a complex story and offer up some amazing action moments, all without being intrusive with narratives or filling those moments with guilt or regret. And I might add that it also has very unique fun gameplay that is challenging, just not in the same way that a lot of the games on this list are. Little Nightmares 2 is a game that ends up being a lot more fun to play than it seems like it should be. The scares actually do work. The grotesque whimsy of some of the creatures you'll sneak past or run away from help shape the narrative in ways that still leave you guessing even after it's over. The twists, turns, and double back are fascinating without being convoluted and twisted in ways that detract from the joy of the journey. It just manages to be paced perfectly with carefully crafted gameplay loops. The game just feels good to play and becomes endlessly riveting, even though it's a very niche, strange, quirky game that, I don't know, on paper doesn't look like it should. Next up, we have Solar Ash. On the surface, it sounds like another one of those artistic games that spends all of its capital delivering messages and big moments at the expense of being a fun gameplay experience. But that's just the surface. When you dive in, Solar Ash ends up succeeding at everything, a bit like The Pathless, but streamlined and different enough to offer up something that feels a little different. There's a story here, a pretty deep one in fact, but it feels more like a game that is a blast to play. The various intertwining mechanics and forward momentum things end up leading nearly every moment into interesting and fun gameplay. And in most games in the style, they don't always make sure to accomplish that. The art design is top-notch, world is beautiful to move through, and the movement and platforming and combat are all good and great, and it all comes together nicely. Skill builds slowly, and then before you know it, you're battling this crazy-ass looking boss and having a good time. Solar Ash isn't a really long game, but it manages to be this satisfying experience that feels perfectly designed, like a polished autumn afternoon type of game, a standout that really deserves more attention, and definitely one of my favorites on the list. Coming in next, we have Risk of Rain 2. Now, there's a lot of hours you can sink into a game like this one, and the primary reason at first, it might not be obvious, it's not in what you expect from it, it looks like another roguelike. And yeah, it's there, but what makes this game compelling doesn't actually exist in a lot of other roguelikes. The freedom to really explore. Unlike other games in the genre that really limit what a player can do early in a run, Risk of Rain 2 gives the player a pretty expansive moveset to start, and then it's up to mastery to figure out how long to stick around and just gold enough enemies to buy every single item and find every secret hidden in a map before the difficulty ramps. Despite the game going on for as long as you let it, there's no point where you aren't in control of the experience. If you want it to be done, you just portal to the next stage. The progression always feels rewarding, with some of the most interesting movement-based mechanics found on items, and then power is given away at just the right time. It's a different way of looking at the roguelike, where every run has the potential to make the game easier. But if you make it easier, it might ramp dramatically, and it demands a different way of thinking than your average roguelike because the mechanics are so finely tuned. I mean, this is one that just always calls me, man. Do you need another game to play? Why not boot up Risk of Rain 2 and run through it again? Next on the list, we have Katana Zero. This is kind of a strange game, but it is strange in a good way. In some ways, it defies convention by switching up the formula right after you think you've got it nailed down. But it's also a game that manages to satisfy just about everybody who plays it. It's got immaculate game design that makes the game more accessible to all players without making it shallow or less of a challenge to actually win. The time-stopping sword-swinging assassin that you play as comes off at first, like the alternative for people who couldn't hack Hotline Miami. But it's actually just requiring a completely different skill set to excel at, and everything here just feels so deliberately polished and fair too. Katana Zero wants you to win, but it also wants to be very clear that skill here is necessary to actually make that happen. You will still get hit with one bullet and fail a run, attempting to take out everyone in a building. You will fight a ton of brutal, well-designed bosses and still come close to throwing a controller here and there. But you'll also get through the game and feel a sense of joy and accomplishment that most games don't offer anymore. Part of it is the impeccable design, and part of it is the sprawling story that actually does draw you in. But mostly, it's the way that you can play Katana Zero for just an hour or two and still feel satisfied when you stop, unlike so many other games. Next on the list, we have Death's Door. Death's Door is one of those games where it becomes obvious from about 5 minutes in that it's going to be something special. That said, it's got an extremely steep learning curve which can push some players away from it if they're not prepared to die a lot early. But if you stick with it, this game opens up significantly after the first vicious movement-based boss battle, which shows exactly what the game expects from the player. In fact, Death's Door becomes a game that is far easier to master and less annoying than it might seem at first, and it actually succeeds because of that. It's not that it's an easy game, not at all. It focuses more on learning patterns and timing, though, than on expecting players to make Hail Mary plays every encounter. The sense of progression is tangible in Death's Door, and the exploration that leads to secrets and special items is compelling. The world opener is intricately designed and charming and very interesting in a way where you just want to explore it. And after you die a few times and then die to the first boss maybe 100 times, you'll get what makes Death's Door so special, and it becomes a game that once you're sucked in, it doesn't let you go. You're going to want to finish it, you're going to want to keep pushing every time you die. It's got that drive factor that's important for a good hardcore game. Coming up next, it's Doom 2016. Despite the fact that the arc of modern gaming has been realism, or at least extreme choices, things people didn't expect, and wildly exaggerated things and all that stuff, Doom 2016 is a game that is just perfectly designed and fun to play for absolutely everybody. The story, it's there, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a reason to jump behind a double-barreled shotgun and shoot demons, and damn it, it's perfect. The movement's so fast and fluid, and death is barely even a minor inconvenience. It's fair, but also still challenging and fast-paced, but simple with enough variety to not get boring. The moment-to-moment gameplay is what makes Doom 2016 so iconic. It's so satisfying and also cathartic. It becomes a full-bodied experience. You know it when you see it, you know it when you play it. Even if you die on a combat encounter 100 times, every failed run differs because you've got new weapons or new ideas, and you're doing something different from your benefit or detriment, depending on how good of a player you are. Secrets are inventive, maps are interesting and varied, and the centerpiece, the gameplay, is just perfect. Bethesda and id Software worked together, and they really nailed it with Doom. And finally, at number 1, we have Returnal. So in some circles, this might not be considered underrated, but it definitely wasn't as popular as some of the bigger Sony first-party games. But all those games are very different to this housemarque third-person roguelike. Yes, I hear you rogue purists out there. You see, it's not applying exactly the legacy term of rogue to exactly what these... It doesn't matter. Is Returnal awesome? Yes, it is awesome. It's a dense game, it has a mysterious narrative, and a white-knuckle sense of combat with creative weapons and tight controls. But let's be real, those aren't the reasons why most people probably didn't play through this one when it first launched. It's hard. It's really freaking hard. It's really, really hard. And that combined with its unique structure, repetition, and going through again and more repetition has you learning the etched runes of this foreign planet more than some people would care to. But eventually, for those that push through it, it really sings. The gameplay loop is so finely tuned here. You just want to keep diving back into new runs and fighting what the game can throw at you next in these procedurally generated sections with brutal enemy encounters with just some of the best, most unique enemies we've seen in games. It's a pretty game, it's got a good story, and on top of that, they also injected good co-op into the game post-launch and a lot of other really good reasons to replay it. So Returnal, to me, covers all the bases and is easily one of the most underrated and addictive games we have right now. So there you have it, 10 games that will keep you up all night. I know there are more. Leave us a comment, let us know what you're thinking.